a little bit different than this past year, how we started. So I think it's just about improving the group, constantly trying to find players that can fit within how we want to play, but also people that fit within the roster construction. This is a salary cap league, but we are fortunate. We have a lot of flexibility, so we have the ability to go out and do a lot if it's the right player. But it's about now making sure we follow our process and find the right players that fit to make us better next year.
And expanding this roster, what are some of the areas of focus, perhaps midfield, defense, or on attack, where you're looking towards the most in order to go ahead and bolster that?
Yeah, I think we're going through a lot. It's no secret. We had problems with injuries at right fullback, and we had problems with injuries at the 9 position. So those are probably the two focal points about, one, can we get guys back fit, or do we need to go and strengthen in the window? And so those are the two main ones. I think we're pretty happy with our midfield. I think we've already gotten some guys in from a pivot standpoint with Alejandro's making good progress to come back hopefully in the beginning of next season. We've got Pedro to kind of fill that role as well. Looking constantly to find players that could fit, but I think we've got a very healthy squad heading into next year, and we won't see a ton of turnover.
Tyler, how do you manage and evaluate expiring contracts? Luca De La Torre and his expired loan, now negotiating deals. How do you manage that and evaluate who would you bring back and who you might not?
Yeah, I'm fortunate we have a really good team, so it's a lot of conversations with those guys. We have to always look at the risk. I think that's what we try to look at first. What is the risk if we are to give a player a certain contract, and how that impacts other things? Whenever you make a deal in this league, it always impacts the rest of how you can strengthen the roster. And so just constantly looking at what we have coming, what the pipeline looks like. Do we have players that we think are ready to step up next year, or do we need to go and get somebody else that can be an impact player?
There's also been discussion with players like Anders Dreyer playing well, or Chucky Lozano even, that other clubs might come and try and quote unquote poach. How do you manage that, and what's the process like that, since both of those guys are under contract, for example, on those two?
Yeah, this is the sport that we're in. It's why we probably love it. It's people always want to come and take good players, and so we're always open to listen to any offer that does come. I don't think any player is quote unquote untouchable in our organization, but of course we have players that are very successful here that we would like to keep around for a long time. But it's just about taking every single one of them and making a group decision. None of that's me making a rash decision and saying yes right away. It's about bringing it to the larger organization, to ownership, and understanding where we're at from a budget and everything else standpoint, and then trying to make the best decision for the club, short and long term.
Could you talk more specifically about Chucky? I mean, he's in a situation where he said very clearly how the World Cup is a huge priority for me. I think we just said to him, like, we're only one player in history has ever been on the MLS roster and maybe to Mexican World Cup roster. Not starting probably would not be a way to get to a Mexican national team roster from MLS. Will you be open to helping him find a situation, at least for the short term, that would enhance those possibilities?
Yeah, I think what I can say is he's under contract for next year. Like I said, we're open to anybody if any offer does come through. What I can say right now is nothing has, and so there's no need for me to speculate about what we would do if nothing is there. So we're expecting him back in preseason, and yeah, we want him to go to the World Cup. We want all of our players to go to the World Cup. I think that's a tremendous honor for him. It's a tremendous honor for a player's career, and so we want to try to help all of our players that are with us try to get to that stage.
In that vein, how do you handle the situation with Amal and him being out of contract? Do you actively try to re-sign him, knowing that he started ahead of Chucky, or do you maybe pass on that so that Chucky has a clearer path?
Yeah, I think we don't look at probably Amal as that's his only position. So we are in active conversations to re-sign Amal. I think he showed this year that he has the quality, but he can also fit within what we're trying to do. And so he's a player that we are trying to keep around for next year.
Other U.S. sports have 4 to 7 month off seasons. What are the advantages and challenges of just having like a month before you have to get going again?
Yeah, that's the tough when you have success in this league, is you get a shorter off season. And so, look, this has been a long year. I think it's been a long year for everybody. It's been a remarkable one, but it's probably been, from a personal standpoint, it's probably been the most challenging year of my life. I got married on December 28th, and I've probably seen my wife 20 times this year, which is really hard and a huge challenge. And so I'm looking forward to being able to go see her for a little while, but this doesn't really stop. There's not really an off season in this role. Mikey will get a few days off the pitch, a couple of weeks, but in our role, the window opens, and you're always trying to figure out how you can continue to improve. And that means bringing other staff members potentially. It means re-signing players. It means going out of the market and looking and trying to make short lists. So yeah, it's a very short one, but in Europe it's even shorter, and so I'm used to it. So now it's just about trying to reflect and then make sure that we have the processes ready to go for next year.
How does your roster construct differ with CONCACAF Champions Cup? Does it have to be deeper? Does it have to be different because of different you're playing with Mexican teams?
Yeah, next year is a crazy year. I think we have 7 midweek games on the calendar in MLS season. We could play up to 12 with Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions Cup, and so that's almost 3 times as many as we had this year. We went through a big injury spell during that time as well in the middle of the summer, and so one of that comes down to process, but we need to maximize our roster as much as we can. We can hold 30 on between senior and supplemental. We can have a couple of off-roster guys, but those are only homegrowns, and in our case, it makes it a little bit more challenging because of the lack of academy. But we need to try to get as many players in as possible, and we need to make sure that availability is the main priority and have those guys as ready to go as we can. But I think just to try to get as many numbers as we can, but still with players that fit kind of our whole roster construction.
Some more depth.
Yeah.
For you personally, in the construction of the roster for next team, obviously you have the Right to Dream network to tap into. Do you go with the short list of players that you already have that are outside of that network and then supplement and accent the team with those players, or vice versa? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, our process is always look internal before we look external. And so we are actively trying to build that network. We have a really strong academy. FC Nordsjælland has proven that when you get those guys from West Africa, they're ready to go, and they normally go very quickly in terms of breaking into the team, but then also going for future transfers. And so we are actively having those conversations. Our Egyptian academy is only getting stronger. Our oldest age groups are getting older and older, and our Denmark academy is also very strong. So I think you saw that in the Cholos friendly, right? We have good players. So we are actively looking internally. Those conversations can be hard because this pathway hasn't existed before, so we need to prove that it works. But we're having those conversations, and so a lot of stuff that's happening internally. But we also are still doing the work externally because we need to be prepared in case any of those opportunities don't come to fruition. And we need to make sure that we have a number of players that strengthens our negotiations as well.
And where does San Diego FC right now, in your opinion, fall in that totem pole of Right to Dream? Whether it's the A side, B side, where do you see yourself in this club being on that, along with FC Nordsjælland?
Yeah, we see it as 2 A clubs, different pathways. We always tell the players that we need to find the pathway that's best for them. And normally for young players, it's opportunities and it's getting playing time. And so there may be a situation where it makes more sense to bring a center back here, for example, because we have maybe not as much depth as FC Nordsjælland has, for example, or maybe make it more sense for that center back to go there because of the injury situation. And so it's always that constant communication. It's where I think we do have a strength in numbers. I've worked for multi-ownership before, but I think our continuity and our collaboration is fantastic. So being able to have people flying back and forth and focusing on that is really important for us.
You mentioned flexibility in your roster. I mean, you had to make some hard decisions this year, like Milan was one of them. Just speak to that a little bit about how the salary cap is limited in that regard, and how did you sort of keep your eye on next season while you're still worried about this season?
Yeah, it's my main role probably is to make sure that we can sustain this thing. Mikey's main role is to make sure that we can win from week to week, and I think we create a really good collaboration of that. We have also a really good staff that prioritizes that. We have a guy that does the cap, and he's unbelievable in making sure that we know every single decision that we make. We know what potentially the consequences could be. That doesn't mean that we don't make it. It means that we are very thoughtful in terms of how we approach it. But yeah, we have open DP spot, we have open U22s, we have a lot of GAM. But our intention is also not to spend every single dollar, because that's a way that you can make it extremely difficult. We don't want a transition where every year we get there and we're transitioning out 10 to 15 players. We want to make it so that we have continuity in the group and that we can bring in key pieces that improve us and make us better. I think also what you saw this year is we know we will improve next year because we've had a lot of young players that made a lot of really big steps. And so that was our challenge to a lot of players today in exit meetings, is that, hey, you've made big steps, but now how do you go away in your first preseason and then come back or your first off season as a professional and then come back in preseason and make sure that you keep making those steps, because that will also make us better next year.
Is that something that maybe fans don't understand? They were new to MLS, that a lot of leagues it's just win now, win now, win now.
Yeah.
And you obviously want to win now, but it's just how to make those hard decisions.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're making bad decisions, but it's a balance.
Yeah, it's really difficult whenever you make a decision to know if it's good or bad. And normally you don't know even in 6 months, right? And there's always ways that you can look at it from a positive and a negative. And it's also my job and our job to make sure we don't get caught up in those decisions, that we're constantly thinking forward. And I think we did that to end this year. And again, in our playoff run, we had Corey Baird and Amal Pellegrino starting almost every game, right? And those guys were guys that we brought in on the deadline, and we were able to get on really cap-friendly deals. that allowed us to continue to push forward. We had an injury crisis at right back, and we had Ian Pilcher, a draft pick, playing there, right? You look at our roster and all the playoff games, we had 3 guys on reserve minimum starting in the back line. If you would have asked me that at the start of the season, I probably would have been a bit more of a panic. But I think that those guys all showed throughout the year, and our coaching staff showed that they can improve anybody. And I think that's also changed the way we're approaching recruitment this offseason. I think we, as a club, still need to do a lot of educating, too, for the community about what we're going to be as a club, because every MLS club is also not the same. And some clubs' plan is to win every single game every single year and do it at all costs to do it, right? And then figure out next year. But I think that's where we need to think long term, and especially as we build our academy, we need to make sure that we have plans in place so that we have pathways for those players and opportunities for those players whenever they do get old enough and are ready to go.
Are you also thinking to bring a top signing from a top European club like you did with Chucky Lozano for next season?
Yeah, I think we're always open for those. So that's the luxury that we do have, is that we have an open position, and so we have names on that list. Some of that, there are a lot of factors that go into that, right? Is the budget there? We're fortunate to have a really supportive ownership group, but we also need to look at financials and how we did as a club, and did those meet expectations and everything like that, and that goes back into what can go back into the roster. So we are constantly looking at every position to strengthen, and so yeah, I think we would look to bring another attacker if we were to do that, whether that's a 9 or a 10. But we are making sure that that short list is always ready to go, so that if we get the green light, that we're ready to capitalize on it.
So you haven't got the green light yet for the third DP?
We're talking about the budget every single day. I think we're going to do a recap after this. Again, we had a lot of playoff games this year that were able to bring in some revenue for the club. But those budget conversations are very fluid with our ownership group, but always we need to also make sure that we're prepared to be able to move. And it also goes to, did you find the right player? I think that's the other question, right? Is we won't just bring any player, and I think that we've proven that. We need to make sure that they will fit it within what we're trying to do and are committed to what we're trying to do as well.
I have some questions on Zoom. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things. One, going back to the designated player conversation, do you have the desire or the thumbs up to go big game hunting? Look for maybe some of the not nobody's on the level of a Lionel Messi, but somebody maybe along the top tier of popular names in global football?
Oof, that's an interesting question. I think we would always be open for it, but it would have to be a perfect situation. You say big game hunting, and I think that I would call Anders Dreyer also big game hunting. I think we were able to get him for a very reasonable number, and I think he's proven that he was in the top 5 of players in this league this year. And so for our standpoint, it's making sure we understand both sides of it, who's out there, but that it's a fit for the club and it's a fit for what we're trying to do long term.
And then I asked Mikey this as well, but as you do have success, you also do have attention. How much are you having to maybe, as you're going through these interviews, kind of re-recruit a lot of your players who are maybe going to be courted by other clubs who didn't really know who they were even a year ago?
Yeah, I don't think we have to re-recruit. I think we have an unbelievable club. If you just look at this facility that we've got, you look at the standards I think that we've put out, I think you look at the football that we've played this year, and the people definitely want to be here. Do people have aspirations to play in Europe and at high-level clubs? Absolutely. And I think that's where we're totally open, and whenever those offers come, we need to make a decision as a club, but also with the player, if that's the right next step for them, and can we support him in that. And so there already is interest there, and I think there will continue to be. That's not only at a player level, it's also at a staff level. That's the part of the pros and cons when you do have success, is that oftentimes your people are the first ones that people look at, and it's also a tremendous honor, and it shows that we are doing things in hopefully a very high level way.
We'll go to Tom.
Good afternoon, Tyler. Appreciate it. MLS economic system, does it succeed at creating equal opportunity regardless of market size?
In terms of acquiring players?
In terms of acquiring players and having what it takes financially to win an MLS Cup.
Yeah, I think if you look at how let's take the Supporter Shield this year, for example, right? Philadelphia Union won the Supporter Shield, and I think if you looked at their spend, they're among the lowest in the league. And If you look at Vancouver, also, I think Ryan Gauld is the only one on the roster over $3 million. I think everybody else is under $2 million, and then they're playing Miami, who probably have the highest valued TAM players in the history of the league. And so I think that right there is it shows you that you can win in multiple ways in this league. And I think that we also showed that you can win in different ways in this league, right? I think that we set out to have a very specific style and approach to the roster build. I think we gave a lot of young players opportunities. I mentioned our back line in the playoff run, but I would argue we probably had among the highest minutes from draft picks this year. I think we brought players that played in Next Pro significantly last year and proved that they can make the jump. So there are different ways that you can win in this league, and I think the important thing is that teams stick to that strategy, and it's a credit to Vancouver and it's a credit to Miami. They both stuck to their strategy and been able to have success in their own ways.
And following it up on that, do you have any concerns going forward that Miami could demonstrate that they could sort of buy a title, where that might be going? And I realize they might lose to Vancouver, but obviously they're spending significantly more money than other teams.
Yeah, I don't have a concern at all because it is very hard to sustain success in this league, and if they are to choose to do that, they have their own other factors that will make that very difficult to do consistently. Look, they have probably the greatest player ever to play the game right now, and so it's no surprise that they're in the final. And I also think they've made intelligent recruitment with Silvetti as a U22, for example, and Allende on a loan TAM deal. And so they still need to operate in the same constraints. Can they spend more on DPs? Yes, absolutely. But teams have done that, and that's not a proven success in this league. And there are teams in the last couple of years that also have really struggled when they've tried to go about that attempt. And so it won't change our strategy. Again, I think if you look at the total spend in the league, it is increasing, and that should hopefully increase the quality. But it still goes down to your process and your recruitment, because I think you can get good players for any sum of money, and it's then about making sure that you put them on the field with people that are really aligned and want to do things in a similar way.
So Tyler, basically it's a fair shot. We in San Diego are a smaller media market, and I know you were in Minnesota with the Twins. You probably realize like the Yankees could quadruple their payroll. This is a different deal, right? It's fair.
Yeah, totally. I think you can do it at the DP level, but it's 3 of your 11 starters, and then you can also find clever ways to bring TAM players that probably are DP level. But again, you're talking 4 or 5 guys, and then you still need to be really clever and still need to find the balance in the rest of your roster, and that's where the strategy comes in. And I also don't compare this league to Liga and Bundesliga, right? You look at those and you look at the past winners, and it's normally the same team over and over again. I think MLS as a league do a good job to ensure that cannot happen. And if teams are choosing to go down that route, again, I still think there's competitive ways to stay in line with that.